Hey YouTube, want to show you this $40 bandsaw that I just picked up a couple weeks back off of Craigslist. And the blade would not stay on it, and the owner just basically wanted to get rid of it, and he was running off to buy a new Harbor Freight bandsaw. And when I bought it, it was that old green paint that it had on. You've seen them on the earlier models. It really looked old and tired, so I thought I'd freshen it up. Since I picked it up for 40 bucks, you know, I figured it deserved a nice, or a paint job. I don't know how nice it is, but it's at least a different color and something that's more pleasing to my eye. But it is seems to be all original in that the motor, the components that are on it seem to be what came out of the factory. And this dates back to 1983. This is a Central Machinery heavy duty bandsaw. It was made in Taiwan for Central Machinery, but that's when Central Machinery was selling out of their plant out in California, which is not too far from me in North Hollywood. But I wanted just to go over a few things. The reason that I bought this, I was going to buy a new Harbor Freight. And very quickly, the fix that to keep the blade on, at least for this saw, was there's a bushing behind the top wheel that was really worn down to less than the thickness of a penny. So I just put in a brass bushing that's about 3/8 thick, and it seemed to cure the offset of the upper and lower wheel to where the blade doesn't fall off anymore. So I attribute it to that. You might want to try that if that's happening to yours. But back to the bandsaw, the reason that I bought it was I wanted to cut a lathe bed, from a 54-inch, which it was, down to a 36-inch or shorter. It's now a 36-inch. That's an Atlas TH, what was a 54, it's now a TH 36. But I figure it would really test the limits of the bandsaw, which I think it did, because it's 6 inches wide, the piece of steel, the bed, and it cut really, really well. I mean, I was very, very impressed. If you look at, here's the cut piece, and if you look at the cut, you can see, I'll take a machinist square here. I don't know if you're able to see just how clean of a cut that is. You can't really see any light. I don't know if the focus is screwed up here or what, but it's truly a clean cut. I mean, a lathe bed is going to be straight for the most part anyways, so you can get a good gauge as to the cut, you know, just with one of these. But I'm so impressed with the cut quality of this little 4x6 bandsaw. I couldn't ask for anything more. And I think one of the reasons, the biggest reason, that this particular type of saw is able to do it is, one, they're smaller, and these are very simple, easy type of saws. There's not a whole lot of complexity in them, other than the worm gear. That happened to be perfect, which I was very pleased about. No wear, no movement, and they always look like they kept it packed with grease. So it was fresh. Replaced it with some 140 weight oil, like the manuals say. But this particular saw, back in the day, was prior to Harbor Freight getting involved with Central Machinery and moving operations over to China. So I think they're made differently. Maybe the casts are a little bit different, but what is different now that I saw when I went to go look for a new one is in these arms. These are the bearing cage arms that slide in and out and give you access to the workpiece, as far as bringing your blade closer, or rather your arms closer. And these are 1/2-inch steel, thick, solid bars running off of one tapped hole, and the bolt is what attaches and pulls it close to the slot that is very precisely cut, because if you put one of these in without the bolt, slide it in, there is no movement up and down. So the job of this nut is basically, or bolt, is basically to pull it in and secure it into the slot, which, like I said, there's no place, so now it's rock solid, and that's for both sides. I believe that's what is the key to the cut quality of this bandsaw. I put a machinist square, I'm not sure if you're able to see it. You see how close that is to the blade? Now I'm going to lift up on the head, and I don't know if the focus will retain itself, but you could see there's no deviation of the blade and the machinist square. In other words, the gap that you see, I'm losing the focus, but the gap that you see is consistent. If I can stay consistent with you get the idea. It just cuts really true, and which is very impressive. I'll let you hear it. The motor is, like I said, is original. I haven't done anything to it except the things that I'm going to show you in a minute, but 39 years old. I think that runs excellent. I don't know what it's supposed to sound like, but I can't imagine it be much quieter, even if it were brand new. So I don't know what kind of blade's on there. It just reads 24 on the blade. I actually don't think it's that quality of a blade, because if you look at it, you can see the little movement. I don't know if that's in the weld where that is. I haven't really inspected it, but you can see that little wobble that's there. Anyhow, what I've done to it, very simply, put a ledge plate on so I can clamp pieces on. You've probably seen that before. I raised this nut. So it's just easier to torque down by hand. Doesn't require a lot of torque anyways. So the through bolt in the back is cut into the extender 1/4 inch bars that I JB welded on, and that bolt in the back, I'm sure you're well aware, is just so keeps the jaws parallel so it doesn't pinch off in the back. And you can see there's a little backer plate that I attached to the bed, and that is meant to keep it at a true 90. It's just a repeatable backstop. So you adjust this if you're going to do an angle cut, and to get the repeatable 90, you just push it up and it does its job. Finally, I did a 1/4 inch plate, widened from what was original. These seem to work well. I'm even thinking though of putting a top plate on this, not on a permanent, because you can't fit it with the room that you have, but a top plate that might extend it out even more, and this will be a nice underplate to work with. I'm not sure about that, but other than the paint, that's all I've done, and I'm very, very pleased with the results. I know most of you probably wouldn't have done that with the cutting of a lathe bed, but really the footprint that I wanted for a lathe is small. I mean, I just do little parts that I'm going to be doing with this. Haven't been doing anything with it, and I got to get a tool post because that lantern style is worthless. But anyways, all that to be said is that I needed a shorter bed for the functionality of and the space that I have available to dedicate to that. But getting back to this bandsaw, super impressed with it, and you know, 40 bucks, and you can't, what can you say? You know, they were going to charge me 125 to 150 to cut this bed at a machine shop, and I'm sure what they were going to do was exactly what I did, which is put it in a bandsaw, cut it, charging me the 125, 150. This way I got it cut, and I got to keep the machine that cut it. So for $40, you can't go wrong. It didn't come with a stand, which I'm glad, because I just put it on an old welding cart that I made many years ago, and because of that little gas bottle extender plate, it doesn't flop around when you put it in the vertical, which is nice. All in all, great bandsaw. Looking forward to using it on many other projects. If you're wondering about that rope, it's just a suspension rope that I have tied up to a knot. I can't remember if this is what kind of knot this is, but it's almost like a slip knot. You can pull it and suspend it right there, and if I wanted to drop it down, I just press down on the top and it lowers it. I thought about getting that shock that I've seen. Pretty expensive, those shocks, and not something that I think is anywhere near a necessity on these. Believe they were meant to basically cut on their own weight, so extremely useful. Glad I bought it. I hope you got something out of it. Till next time.